This here's a finishing adze. It is so sharp, and it helps your carving out quicker to even shape. Well, it's actually shaping. I'll show you how this works quickly. I'll just get a scrap piece of wood. This you lean it at an angle. You make sure you have a chopping block, and what you do is you kind of just let it. You just kind of push it up on top, but then you put a motion to it. Then you just continue on. It takes a bit of time to getting used to, rather than just. See, it's mainly, you have a rough wood here, and then the finishing adze just takes it down a little bit more, and it leaves it a bit more smoother. You have different types of adze blades that I've been meaning to purchase from the knife makers and from some elders, but I haven't got around to that as of yet. It just makes it a little bit more smoother, and it takes the wood out a little quicker rather than trying to use a knife. And that's what this finishing adze is for. And here's another gouge which you use for taking the wood out from behind a mask or a small totem pole to make it lighter. But for this totem pole here, it's just going to be the full three-dimensional totem pole. Here are some of my tools. This is a tool pouch. I'm just dusting it off, and then I'm going to replace the knives back in there. There's a good number of tools here. I have adze blades inside the carving shop. I've just set up a 10 by 20 tent here to shelter my wall panel for the time being. And this knife here is called a cricker knife. It's a curved knife. It digs out wood from inside the mask. I have various single blade fine carving knives. It depends on the grain on the wood. I have various double-edged knives here. These knives, you could use them any which way. Like you could turn them sideways, you could gouge it out, or use it as a straight blade and carve it down and in, or V-cuts on an angle. As I was saying, I have various sizes of double-edged blades. And as I was saying, they could be used for gouging or straight cuts or V-cuts. And I also have various chisels here. This is a gouge, and these are a slightly curved chisel, mainly used on totem poles. Here's a larger straight chisel, as a double edge on there. And here's a slightly curved knife. It's got a bit of a curve that helps clean out difficult areas. There's a smaller one here, and here's a large handled curved knife. A lot of these tools were handmade by knife makers, and these double-edged knives I was talking about. You could use them for straight cuts, V cuts, and also for a little bit of gouging. And there's a good number of them. And these knives here are the ones that I made myself. And but the curved knives were made by a knife maker. And these curved knives here were made by a knife maker. And these are special orders. And these double-edged knives I've made myself by using old files, which you've taken down and ground and worked and on stones, sharpening stones. And as for the process of this, is you use work from a rough grid to a very smooth grid, and some of the water stones you use for sharpening up tools are probably going up to 6,000 grit. And this is a water stone, a Japanese water stone, to help keep your tools sharp. And then you also use, there's different artists that use jeweler's rouge and leather that helps keep their tools sharp, and also that takes the excess metal off the edge. This here, I just have the leather on a block with strop. Strop is just a tool sharpening powder. It's something similar to rouge, a jeweler's rouge. It just takes all the excess metal off, and it keeps it sharp. So you don't have to keep sharpening the tools all the time. You can tell when your tools are sharp is when you can take just a tiny bit of your nail off, just a smidge, and you can tell when your tools are really sharp.
Did you get that?
And
do it again, how you can tell when it's
okay, as I was saying, you could tell when your tool is really sharp. You can just take a little bit of nail off enamel from your nail, and you can see it at the edge of the metal there. A lot of the artists don't really handle their tools too much. The oil off your skin helps deteriorate the sharpness in the metal. And that's another reason why carvers don't like anyone touching their tools. Okay, these double-edged knives, I've picked up some old mill bastard files and ground them down with a grinder, a wet dry grinder, and shaped it. And they're various sizes of files because they are the best metal to use, because there is no bend to it, there's no spring to it. But there's also like different other types of metals to use for knife making. And I think the knife makers have their own secret, but this is what I use. And also, like, after I've shaped my knife, my double-edged knives, and my single-bladed knives here, I've used some yellow cedar and just fit my blade in there. And I used epoxy to glue it in. And I also used twine and just wrapped it all the way around to stabilize it a lot more. So if the epoxy decides to crack and break, it won't go anywhere because the twine is holding it nice and tight in there. But actually, the epoxy always just it stays reinforced, and it doesn't really come apart too often. And most of these knives are all wrapped with twine and has a bit of epoxy on it. I've used various different woods just to experiment, because a lot of the handles, they tend to crack and break, and I've used oak for this here because I had some excess wood from a workshop, but mainly I use yellow cedar handles, and they work the best. And for the double-edged blades, I have a longer handle because these are used for totem poles for taking wood out. A double cut. The double cut is one straight line down, and then it's kind of beveled down and in.